The storm came without warning, as they always did on this forsaken stretch of coast. Magnus watched from his tower as the sky turned the color of old bruises, purple and black bleeding together until sea and sky became one roiling mass of fury. He'd been keeping the light for 47 years. 47 years of climbing the 218 iron steps that spiraled up through the lighthouse's belly. 47 years of trimming wicks and polishing brass, of watching ships pass like ghosts in the fog. 47 years of solitude. The lens began to turn with its familiar grinding sound, and Magnus checked the oil reservoir. Full enough. The beam would cut through this storm as it had cut through countless others, a silent guardian that asked nothing in return but his devotion. "Still here, old friend?" he murmured to the light, as he often did. The light never answered, but Magnus had long since stopped expecting it to. He descended the steps, slower now than in his youth, his knees protesting each downward motion, to his small keeper's cottage attached to the tower's base. The wind screamed through the cracks in the stone, and spray from the waves crashed against his single window like handfuls of gravel. He lit his pipe and settled into his chair, the same chair where his predecessor had sat, and his predecessor's predecessor before that. The radio crackled to life. "Beacon Point, this is Harbor Master. Weather Service says this one's going to be bad. You secure up there?" Magnus reached for the transmitter. "Secure as always, Harbor Master. Lights burning bright." "Good man. Stay safe." The radio fell silent, and Magnus was alone again with the storm and his thoughts. He'd come here as a young man, running from a broken heart. Sarah had been her name. Sarah with the copper hair and laugh like morning bird song. She'd chosen another, a merchant with prospects and a house in town. Magnus had chosen the sea, or perhaps the sea had chosen him. "Just for a while," he'd told himself then. "Just until I figure things out." But the lighthouse had a way of keeping its keepers. Days became weeks, weeks became years. He'd meant to leave 100 times, had even packed his bag twice. But then a storm would come, or a ship would pass too close to the rocks, and he'd remember why he stayed. The light needed him. The ships needed him. Sarah had died 15 years ago. He'd learned of it through a letter from his sister, yellowed now and tucked in his desk drawer. She'd lived a good life, the letter said. 3 children, 7 grandchildren. He was happy for her. He was. A tremendous crash shook the lighthouse. Magnus jumped to his feet, heart hammering. Through the window, he could see nothing but darkness and spray. The light still turned overhead. He could feel its rhythm through the stone beneath his feet. But something was different. He grabbed his oilskin coat and battled his way outside. The wind tried to tear him from the rocks. Rain lashed his face like needles. And there, barely visible through the storm, he saw it. A fishing boat, small and helpless, being driven toward the rocks. Magnus cupped his hands and shouted, but the wind stole his voice. He ran to the foghorn, pulled the chain. The deep, mournful blast cut through the storm. Once, twice, 3 times. The boat was turning, fighting the current. Magnus climbed the stairs faster than he had in years, ignoring the fire in his lungs. He burst into the lantern room and grabbed the signal mirror, angling it to catch the beam. He flashed it toward the boat. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS, I see you. The beam swept around again. The boat was moving, slowly, painfully, but moving away from the rocks. Magnus kept signaling until he was sure they'd found safe passage, until they'd disappeared into the darkness beyond his light's reach. He collapsed into his chair at the top of the lighthouse, gasping. His hands shook, his vision swam. But through the window, he could see his light still turning, still burning, still guiding. "Still here," he whispered to it. The storm raged through the night, but Magnus didn't sleep. He stayed in the lantern room, tending the light, watching over his stretch of sea. As dawn finally broke, painting the waves in shades of gold and pink, he saw the fishing boat in the distance, limping toward harbor, but safe. The radio crackled. "Beacon Point, this is Harbor Master. The fishing vessel Knight's Promise reports you saved their lives last night. Well done, Magnus. Well done." Magnus didn't respond at first. He looked around the lantern room, at the brass he'd polished until it shone like gold, at the lens he'd cleaned 10,000 times, at the light that had been his companion for 47 years. He'd never married. He'd never had children. He'd lived alone on this rock, keeping a light that most people never thought about as they sailed safely past. But last night, he'd saved 3 lives. And the night before that, his light had guided a container ship through the fog. And all the nights before that, for 47 years, he'd been a silent guardian keeping watch over travelers he'd never meet. "You're welcome, Harbor Master," he finally said. "Just doing my job." He climbed down to make his breakfast, but paused halfway down the stairs. Through the narrow windows, he could see the sun climbing higher, burning away the last of the storm clouds. The sea was calm again, sparkling and blue. And above him, faithful as always, the lighthouse beam continued to turn, though the day no longer required it. Magnus smiled and continued his descent. The light would need tending again tonight,